You know, it's at the point in time. Jesus said he came to bring a sword to divide. Not intentionally, but because of what you stand for, people will leave you. People will desert you because it gets hot when you stand for righteousness. It gets hot when you stand for things that are true. It gets hot when you stand for truth. It gets hot. And not too many people can handle that. Thank you so much for liking and your comments and subscribing to the channel. Please share this with your friends. Smash that like button. Smash the subscription bell. Share this with everybody you know. We're trying to make sure people understand that they're not victims, that they are empowered for greatness, and all this stuff that's out here that's telling them otherwise is false and will not benefit them in the end. So please, I appreciate that. Share that. When the children of Israel had made it over to the promised land, one of the famous verses of scripture is in Joshua, where Joshua essentially says to them, choose you this day who you will serve. Who are you giving your allegiance to? That's the question on the table today. Who are you giving your allegiance to? Who are you pledging allegiance to? Who do you pledge your allegiance to? And you know how we can tell and locate where you're pledging your allegiance? Is where you dedicate your time, your energy, your resources, and your focus. Where are we dedicating our time, our resources, and our focus? Are we giving allegiance to people and things and ideology that are so contrary to what we believe, but yet we side up with that party because we feel that that party, and I'm not talking about a political party, I'm talking about a party, a group of people, a way of thinking. Are we siding with that way of thinking strictly out of fear? Out of fear of repercussions? It's time for people who are on the conservative side, and I'm talking about you, my black conservative brothers and sisters. It's time for you to stand up and pledge your allegiance, not to a party and not to a specific cause. I'm talking about pledge your allegiance to the party of Jesus Christ. Pledge your allegiance to biblical values. It's time for us to rise up and pledge our allegiance to biblical values. The time for choosing is now. The time for us to choose is now. You can see it all in the news. Recently, a person in Colorado was denied a transplant because she has not taken the vaccine.
My kidneys took a dive and I ended up in stage 5.
The average wait for a kidney is time Leilani Lutali doesn't have. A friend she met just 10 months ago is willing to save her life.
She's essentially packed her suitcase with my kidney and showing up at the hospital.
Jamie Fogner didn't get the vaccine for religious reasons. Leilani hasn't either because she's already had the virus and isn't sure how the shot would affect her health. But neither woman thought they needed it.
At the end of August, basically, they confirmed that there was nothing in place. There was no COVID shot that was needed at that time.
They were shocked to receive this letter from UCHealth saying they are non-compliant by not receiving the COVID-19 vaccine. Now it's get the vaccine or don't get the transplant.
Her life has now been held hostage because of this mandate.
UCHealth recently made the policy for enhanced safety. The COVID mortality rate in transplant patients ranges from 20% to more than 30%.
And then I said, well, I'll sign a medical waiver. I have to sign a medical waiver anyways for over the whole transplant itself.
Now they're looking at other hospitals. UCHealth won't budge.
Can I sit here and allow them to murder my friend when I've got a perfectly good kidney and can save her life?
How crazy is that in this country, a person who has a willing donor, she has a willing donor, but yet she was denied a transplant because she will not take a vaccine. My pastor spoke about this years ago when he talked about potentially hospitals and doctors may even refuse to see you. We're at that point. People are being refused service simply because of personal choice. And so the time is to choose. Will you bow to Nebuchadnezzar and his golden statue of the vaccine? Will you bow to this world's culture, what the world's trying to push on you? Will you bow or will you stand up for biblical values? And I'm sad to say too many people have bowed the knee Too many people are afraid to lose their job, to lose friends, to lose loved ones. You know, it's at the point in time. Jesus said he came to bring a sword to divide. Not intentionally, but because of what you stand for, people will leave you. People will desert you because it gets hot when you stand for righteousness. It gets hot when you stand for things that are true. It gets hot when you stand for truth. It gets hot. And not too many people can handle that. Not too many people can handle when the heat, when the fire, when persecution comes. But those are the ones who will be refined in the fire, who will come out shining as pure gold. Those are the ones who will be written about in future. Those are the ones who will have a legacy. Think about all the civil rights fathers and mothers. They knew the heat they were going to take. And there were some telling them don't do it. There were some in the church telling them it's not worth it. But they fought and they stood anyway. Think about all the people that fought for civil rights. All the people that participated in Underground Railroad. There were people telling them don't do that. Think about those people. Think about that. And yet we have people today who are afraid of a little heat, of somebody persecuting you on social media, calling you a name. The time for choosing is now. We can't play games anymore. It's time for us to pick a side. It's time for us to choose. Are we standing for truth and biblical values, or are we not? Are we going to stand up for things that we know are right, or will we not? Will we stand up for truths that have been proven over time, but yet the God and the spirit of this current age wants us to deny those? The time for choosing is now. I know there are plenty of people that haven't bowed their knee to Baal. There are plenty of people who have not bowed their knee to the spirit of this world. But we need some pushing. They need some prying. They need a push. And that's fine. But it's time for us to choose. It's time for us to stand up, because that's the only way things will change in this country. When people like myself, like yourself, stand up and take it upon ourselves and stop waiting for some politician to do it. Stop waiting for somebody else to do it, and we do it. If you see an issue with the school board, run for school board. You see an issue with your city, run for city council. You see an issue with your county, run for county commissioner. That's the only way we can change things on the political side. But when it comes to the spiritual standpoint, the more important standpoint, we got to pray. We got to fight spiritually. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They're mighty through God. We have to fight that way. We have to fight a two-pronged approach. We fight in the natural, running for office, speaking out, going to school board meetings, going to city council meetings, but praying at the same time. That's a two-pronged approach that we have to take in order for us to prove that we're not victims, that we are empowered for greatness, for us to demonstrate victory here in this earth and in our country and in this land and in our cities and in our communities. If we want to see change in our communities, we need to be the change. We are the change. We are the change agents. We are salt and light. We must bring that. We can bring that. We're the only ones that can. We are the only ones that can. In the midst of darkness, we must shine as lights. We must shine as lights in the midst of darkness. And I believe we can, and I believe we will. We must strip away anything that will divide us. Anything that will divide us. Let's strip it away. Because at the end of the day, we can agree on a lot of things. We agree on a lot of things. There's commonality in a lot of areas. Let's focus on those commonalities. Let's focus on biblical truth. Let's focus on making sure that truth and righteousness and justice prevails in this land for everybody, not just the elite, for everybody, for everyone. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness, but we must stand up. Now is the time for choosing. We must side up with the party. And I'm not talking about a political party. We must sign up with the party that is in alignment with what we believe. It's time to choose. It is time to choose. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. It is time for us to choose. choose who you will serve this day. Because you're serving somebody. We're all created to worship. You're worshiping something or worshiping somebody. You're worshiping self, you're worshiping man, or you're worshiping God. It tells by our actions, it tells by how we speak, it tells by what we do and what we tolerate and what we allow in our lives and in our communities. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. And let's let the light shine through us to impact this world, to change this world, so that truth will remain and prevail. Because righteousness exalts a nation. Sin is a reproach to any people. Righteousness exalts a nation. Sin is a reproach to any people. Let's exalt our nation. Let's stand for righteousness. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness.